welcome back to the Naija Filmmaker, a podcast for us to talk about Nigerian filmmakers, their films, and how we can build a diverse and functional industry. I'm your host, Selegot. On this episode, my guest is Nengi Adoki. She's an actress, writer, and producer. She's most notably known for her role as Lola on The Men's Club and also the creator of The Most Toasted Girl. We talk about her early days in theatre, agency representation as an actor, and how she kept her acting dream alive. If you're a new listener, you're welcome and I hope you enjoy. Hi Nengi, you're welcome to the Naija Filmmaker.
Hi, it's nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So can you introduce yourself?
I'm an actress, I'm a writer, I'm a producer, and my last name is Adoki, so Nengi Adoki. And when I'm not doing any of those things, I'm very passionate about NSARS. I would like to see change in Nigeria. And when I'm not doing that stuff, I'm singing and dancing and making a complete fool of myself. But that's by the way.
Yeah. Can you tell us how you got started in filmmaking and acting?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, it would be a lie to say I fell into it. That's not true. I think from a very young age, I've always been very interested in film. I've always been interested in performance, first of all. So usually I say I'm a performer because right from when we were young, I remember my dad, he used to get us to perform at his just carols, or even if it were an anniversary happening or a birthday party or anything, he would have all the kids just come out. I got my first piano when I was very young, blew it up, didn't know how to play. So over time I think I've just kind of embraced that, especially because I was a very quiet kid. I know it's hard. By the end of this call, it will be very hard to believe, but I was a very, very quiet kid.
Yeah.
And my little sister even used to think there was something wrong with me, right? So she would try to hit me to get me to talk or react or do something. But the good thing is, because of performance, I could really express myself when I was singing or dancing. So I thought I was going to be a dancer. Of course, Nigerian parents would tell you that's not enough. I remember even when I started painting, I told my dad I wanted to be a painter. He just laughed. So obviously I had to study architecture, and I was born in Port Harcourt. Went to a secondary school there before I also left, and also did high school in Canada as well.
Yeah.
And while I was there, I just continued performing and creating spaces where performers could just kind of hang out. And then obviously up until university, and I would say professionally, I started in 2013. And I say that because that was when I decided to become an actor. As far as deciding to become a filmmaker, I have Nigeria to thank for that, because I didn't realize I should be making films until I moved back to Nigeria as a young adult. So in 2013, I had been organizing these theater shows for about 5 years when I was 19 at the University of Toronto. So I did those. They were very successful. And every time people would come on stage, because I wrote, I directed, and I choreographed those shows.
Yeah.
And when people would come on stage, I would tell them exactly what it was that I wanted. And I would tell them, and they wouldn't get it. So I'd have to get up on stage, and then I would have to do it. So when I was doing it, people would all be like, Nengi, are you sure you shouldn't just act the role? I'm like, guys, I can't do all of those things. And then also now act. Do you understand? So something has to give. But I got that feedback often enough where even when I would go on stage, to show people what I meant, I started realizing that I enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed becoming other people. And I think what was most profound for me about acting, because I have to clarify in this call that I'm an actor first before I'm anything else.
Yeah.
It's not because of anything. I'm really good at all the other things that I do. I'm glad I can say that, but I've chosen to be an actor first. But, back then, I still wanted to be a dancer, when I was younger. So I just recognized that the craziest thing about acting was it was dancing, but with words.
Yeah.
As a dancer, you had to feel the music. You had to know where, where you were going with it, how you were doing it. So you use your body a lot. But with words, I just found that it became easier. So after all of that, I made the decision in 2013 to go to acting school. And I'm glad I did, because I didn't just learn how to, well, I wasn't learning how to act. I was just, I think, kind of sharpening what was already kind of there. But then I learned sound production, lighting, costume design, all of this stuff for the stage, not for screen. So when I came out and I needed an agent in Toronto to help me get into those rooms where they were hiring people to be on House of Cards, or name any big show.
Yeah.
I got there and I wanted them to hire me. I realized, my theater acting is too big for the screen. So let's tone it down a little bit. So I started going to workshops for screen. And again, because I was in that space, I was kind of able to learn as well what was happening on screen. So I'm thankful for all of my time there, because it really just exposed me to everything as far as entertainment. Like, I did the whole 9 yards. So by the time I was coming to Nigeria to come and be an actor, there was a lot of experience that I had that, brought me here. But I wouldn't say I knew immediately that I should start making films the moment I came here. Naija showed me Shege in its own way, First off, it was a soft landing because I started off in a tech company. It was a soft landing. I guess I failed to mention that at university, thank God for Canada, they let you study more than one thing. So I finished with 3 degrees. And one of them was in information technology and computer science, right? So thankfully I had those skills. So I leveraged that when I came to Nigeria. Because for anybody listening, if you have dreams or if you have plans, let me not say dreams, of coming to Nigeria to kind of pursue any kind of career in this field, try to get a job. Just get something that's like, paying the because what I saw after I left that tech industry, I don't know if this podcast, this time that you have here, is enough for us to talk about it, but let's just say thankfully I had that job and I enjoyed it as well. I used to work at Andela. I don't know if anybody knows that. I used to train software developers on their soft skills. And thank God I made some money, and when the right opportunity came, as far as like acting, which was a theater show, a Nigerian musical called Waka the Musical, produced by Bolanle Austin Peters and Terra Culture people. It's going to be the first musical that would be playing at London's West End from Nigeria. So I auditioned and I got the lead role, but it was a stage show. So I got it, and, I went off to London. I did it. The show was sold out. BBC, everyone covered it. There was a lot of noise. But I quickly found doing that acting was very jealous. So I had to make a decision. Are you ready to do this now? Because since I've been doing it and I've been doing other things, and my work, even in Toronto, felt like a distraction from the work that I was doing as an actor. In Nigeria, my work also felt like a distraction from the work I was doing. But that's not enough to just say, okay, let me go be an actor and a filmmaker. No, it's so heavy in terms of capital and what you need to actually make it happen. So it'll be crazy for you to not at least have some kind of plan. And my plan was to raise money, save money, so that at least I'll be okay for maybe 2 years while I go and pursue this thing. And thankfully I did. I became an actor, and I quickly learned that it wasn't enough, because how much are they paying you per project in this country to be an actor? So where's the money if I don't want to go back to technology full time, right? How can I do this? And honestly, it just made sense to start to do my own work as a producer, which wasn't too far-fetched from the work I was doing, making theater back then for 5 years back to back, So if in many ways, I would say, I don't want to say it's less work, but I'm just saying in terms of like what's required and the energy, I kind of understand what's needed, and I kind of understand what I'm going for as far as the standard. I'm very passionate about telling Nigerian stories, which is why I also came here to try and build a career here as well. So having known all of those things, it just made sense. And I also have to shout out Bovie. the comedian. Like he really pushed me. He was doing a show on YouTube called Back to School. So he had made it, and during the writing, the editing stage, we're just kind of like going back and forth, and we finally filmed it. It's available on YouTube right now. But he's like, Nengi, you need one of these to propel your career forward. Like you can't just be like waiting for someone else to do a project and then call you, and then finally you get paid, and then you eat, etc., etc. So, and trust me, the suffering at the time, it was very obvious that I also needed, to do something else. So we sat down and we were just like brainstorming, and then we came up with the Most Toasted Girl, right? And for me, it was very exciting because beyond some of the smaller projects that I had done in my capacity as a writer or like, a performer or a producer or whatever, I could now do it. But this time, for a web series, like something that people could actually go and watch and appreciate these other sides of me beyond just the acting, right? So that's how Toasted Girl was born. And I have to also shout out Bolaji Kekiriaku. He's my manager, and he's also the director of the second batch of Toasted Girl episodes. If you're listening, please go watch it. It's on YouTube. It's free. Type in The Most Toasted Girl. Watch episodes 1 to 8 right now. And Bolaji, he runs a media company. So we kind of partnered to get that done. And the learnings, the experience, and everything that I knew, like I'm not crazy. I meant to do this work. So, that's my long answer to your question.
Okay. So, you mentioned that, it's important to kind of be working while you're trying to get your plans off the ground. But how important is it not to have distractions so that you can, make advances in your specific job? So like whether it's acting or filmmaking, how important is it not to have distractions?
So I guess I have to further the question, like, and ask you, what do you mean as far as distractions? Because how entertainment is, the distraction is the entertainment. So what do you mean?
Yeah, so you mentioned it's important to kind of have something that is bringing in the money, but then you balance that with working creatively, whether it's acting or directing. But at some point, one of them will suffer.
Yes, indeed. So, so let me set context for anybody who's listening. For instance, like the reason I called my work at the time a distraction is because my goal was to make a career in entertainment. Yeah. Now, if your goal is to make a career in technology, for instance, then entertainment is a distraction. You understand? So for me, because I had the goal of making a career in entertainment, my work was paying me, but like we've established, it became a distraction.
Yeah.
Because for all of the wonderful characters people see on screen that we're able to create, you need time to be able to do that. If I'm going to be working for myself as a writer, I can afford to do that because it's me. But the fact that I'm not paying myself doesn't make it right. If I had to hire a writer today, I would pay them and I would need to be paid. Money has to be coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
Now, if you have generous parents or whatever, or you've invested, you're one of those people who are lucky enough to invest in Bitcoin when it first started, and you have a reserve, good for you. That just wasn't my story. And for me, the stakes were very high. I'm about to get very personal here. The stakes were very high because in I think 2017, 2018, the tail end of 2017 and 2018 is probably the most difficult time in my life ever since, I've been in this world in this short period. And the reason I say that is because that was the year I finally, I made the transition. I had to pay rent. All of the money that I had saved up from working in technology had to go in there. I didn't even have furniture. Like, there were times when, there would be power out for like multiple days. Like I used to watch my food go bad. Yeah. I'm not glorifying suffering. Like I said, if you have parents and you have somebody who's willing to give you that money, or you have investment, take it. That was not the case for me at the time. Thank God I don't look like what I've been through. But when I tell people these stories, they almost, it's like a laugh. Like it's almost dismissive when I'm saying how difficult, things truly were. And it's not even because, as far as my parents, I'm not communicating that they didn't even have the money or the funds. The reason why I mentioned 2018 is at the time, my dad, unfortunately was kidnapped in Port Harcourt, and he was kidnapped for 3 weeks. And I recall, these people wanted a ransom of about 20 million naira. Now, I don't care how rich you are, even if you have 20, it's not just lying around for you to just be like, yeah, give me my dad.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Like, we had to make a lot of assets liquid. I remember at the time we were running out of time was really the issue, because if we had enough time to even say sell a house, for instance, that would have been better. But to just make liquid a lot of the monies was just really hard. And my parents, they've already sacrificed so much. I mean, I went to one of the best schools in the world at the University of Toronto. And I got additional education. And at the University of Toronto, my dad wasn't paying cheap fees. As an international student, like, we're talking about like at least $30,000 to $40,000 a year. So he has 4 children. 20 million is not just going to come out from nowhere. You understand? So by the time we did all we needed to do, paid everything, that was right at the time where I had paid rent and I had come out of tech. So you can imagine how, in fact, I almost felt useless, because I'm like, okay, there's this thing that needs to happen. And then I finally decided to focus on this thing. So as morbid as it sounds, even that kidnapping was a distraction, because all of the effort and monies and all that stuff saved up, needed to go into that. So and subsequently, my dad had to be flown out of the country to get medical attention, because how they took him is not how they brought him back. But I'm thankful that so the reason I got personal is because I want to highlight to you that at that point I had a choice to either go and hand in my resume at a tech company so that money would be coming from somewhere, or hey, you started on this path, at the time, 2018, I was 28, so what do you really want for your life? If it's really this entertainment thing, then you have to get serious about it in a way that nothing else is distracting you. And at that point, to me, I'd lost so much. So, I mean, how bad, how much worse can it be, right? So that was a distraction. Technology was a distraction. So it's up to the performer or the filmmaker to then decide, how is this going to work in the context of a country like Nigeria, where there's very little to no support for creatives? There are no grants that you can leverage. And as far as getting jobs, I'm not one to call the industry cliquish, because at the end of the day, you do need people around you. And if the people around you are the people who are going to get the job done, then get the job done. I'm not annoyed at that. But at the same time, it also then sets me up and puts me at a disadvantage where I'm coming into a space where I didn't even grow up in. I'd never lived in Lagos up until I moved here as an adult. I don't have those networks. I don't have the same networks. I don't have the same, I don't know people, basically. So I was literally building from ground zero. And that's what a lot of people do. But I think what helped me was the fact that I was able to leverage some of my tech skills as far as strategy goes and apply it. I was able to leverage some of my media skills. I have a digital communication degree as well. So as far as that, to just make sure that whatever it was I was doing, I was amplifying it. And for me, coming from tech, a lot of tech only thrives in collaborative spaces. Now take that and then try and, reimagine that in an industry like Nollywood, where we're just now learning that we should be collaborating to make a lot of impact. You know? So there was a lot of war. And I'll set context for you. I remember when I used to work at the tech company, at night, I would make it my duty to make sure I was in any performance, filmmaking, acting space possible. Then when I was working daytime. So when I was in the tech industry, it was easier, I think, relatively easier to get information in terms of and honest, truthful information about the actual state of the industry. And I think a lot of the people I engaged with while I was in tech didn't see me as any kind of competitor or a threat or whatever. Like, I'm in my industry, and I mean, you're talking to somebody in tech, maybe money can even come out if you don't even know. I'm not oblivious to those things. So a lot of times, or there are people who just simply were just open, right? But even then, when I transitioned from tech, I now became in the industry gone. Even those people who were very open and very helpful, now knowing that I was in the industry, a lot of information just wasn't as available as it was when there were no stakes, when I wasn't one of the key stakeholders, now, and I don't blame people, there's a lot of, what's the word? A lot of people dupe people in this country. How much more the industry? People are like, these are my clients or people who fund my work. So I don't want everybody else having access to that. So there's and for good reason. There's obviously pros and cons to doing that. But I just quickly realized that information wasn't as forthcoming. But I was lucky in the sense that right after I came back from that stage, first job in London, I got back into another theater gig on stage in Nigeria with Olu Jacobs and Ajoke Silva, Heartbeat the Musical. Yeah. After that, I got another job. But the reason why things did get dire in 2018 was because the money I was making, like I would have to work at least 3 times, what am I saying? At least 5 times more to even make what I was making in tech as it translated to the acting industry. So it just took a lot more time to make the same amount of money. So all this to say, when you ask about a distraction, that's relative. I think the person needs to understand what it is that they want, and then devise some sort of strategy to go and get it. It has to be like, not that it has to be do or die, but I took the do or die approach. I mean, you can chill, you can have side gigs, like everybody's path is different. So that's why I said, who are you? What do you want? And how are you going to get it? You have to decide that. Yeah.
Okay, so you did your bachelor's in performance and IT, and you also did performing arts, a certificate course. How helpful was this in kind of informing your craft in acting?
On a big scale, I think that if there's anything you want to do, like additional training will never be a bad idea. It will never be a bad idea. There's raw talents and, there's finesse. Because I mean, and too often, even in terms of like even just acting and filmmaking, you see people who have raw talent who do very well in one thing. But then can you replicate this if I'm asking you to play something else? Yeah. Can you replicate this if I'm asking you to shoot a different story or tell a different story? Perhaps maybe about a culture that you're not even privy to, that you don't understand, right? So there are techniques. And I think that in Nigeria, we desperately need to institutionalize a lot of the techniques and the process so that we're all speaking the same language on set. Yeah. Because right now, some people are speaking American. Some people are speaking English. Some people are like, but don't bring that to you. This is how we do it in Nigeria. So there's a disconnect in terms of the language that we're all using, because oftentimes I find that we're all trying to do the same things, but people are getting upset about how it's being said. Yeah. You understand? So, and I think that that's what training does. My training really helps me at a world level, especially also in the society that I train in. For instance, like I don't imagine being confused about what to do and how to do if I was in Canada. Yeah. I know the system, I know the process. If I don't know it, it's easily accessible. But if I'm coming to Nigeria now, and I think the one good thing I did for myself was to not come to tell anybody how to do anything. I just needed to learn, to understand what is actually going on here. But even that one, I don't have access. Where is all this information? Where is the repository? What am I supposed to, how should I get into audition rooms? And I just feel bad because oftentimes, you have a lot of like young filmmakers and actors like reaching out to me in my inbox, telling me that they are interested. And I honestly do not have any structure to point them to say, okay, if you do this and this and this and this is what will happen. In Nigeria, you're as good as your last job. Yeah. Because when you move from unemployment, it's like by the time you're going to the next one, just like everybody else, whether it's somebody that woke up in the morning and said, this acting, filmmaking is interesting, you're there too with them, just like you who has had experience. So how can you just balance it out and make sure that the people who are actually like here for this industry and looking to grow it, not just, take from it, are being prioritized? And when I say that, I don't mean favoritism or nepotism. Yeah. I mean like actual value. So how do you know that this person that I'm engaging with is not just somebody who's simply interested and trying to see how it goes, or this is somebody who's, actually trying to bring value and give value, to my set or to the role that they're about to play, because they ultimately care about the big picture, about what Nigerian cinema means, about what Nollywood means, about what the stage here means, right? So that's what I think is lacking. And so as far as training, I think it's extremely important. I think that the Nigerian cinema, Nollywood in general, needs institutions that support and nurture it. Be it is great institutions that are teaching people how to act and make films well, be it like agencies, people who are actually operating as agents and not taking advantage of this disadvantaged youth who maybe are falling into acting because that's all they have left. Some people tell you, come and pay 30K to do this. It's because of a lack of these institutions and training centers, and even just like a credit system, for instance. And it's not to say we have to do it the way Canada or any. I don't care about that. What I care about is value. You understand? If this works for them and it doesn't work here, great. How can we make the one that works for us? So the suggestion I was about to make was, for instance, if we wouldn't be sent to just any audition, there's a credit system. In fact, for you to get into a union in Canada, you have to have done specific jobs at a certain caliber. Then once you get into the union, then when people need you for work, they're engaging with you, not just by yourself. For instance, like there are certain jobs, they will have to pay you X amount. It doesn't matter. If you're doing this job, this is how much you're going to pay you. But in fact, in terms of pay structure, it's very subject to just who is negotiating here in Nigeria. There's nobody. And when I say there's nobody, it's not for the non-existence of those bodies. I mean like their actual practical usefulness. Because these bodies exist here. The question is, how well are they doing? I'm not trying to say they're not doing well. I'm also not trying to say that, they are non-existent. I'm just trying to say, are we doing as best as we can be as far as what it means to support and nurture Nollywood? So all of this is extremely important, because then once we can agree on what and how we're doing what we're doing, I think it would be significantly easier to make massive strides in the industry. We're already doing it without structure. So you can imagine if that enters, come on, we're going to have even more of an impact, right? In terms of like, where we are just in the world, and how much more people appreciate these stories and this industry for what it is.
Okay, so you were like briefly in the Canadian movie industry. You acted on a show. During this period, did you join any of these unions or guilds?
So by the time I got my credit to be eligible to get it, which took quite a bit of time actually, and I won't even say it's because I wasn't talented. I'm very I'm very loud about what it is that I can do. I'm not ashamed to say I'm a fucking phenomenal actress who's going to get even better, right? So I knew it wasn't because I wasn't talented, because I'm also going to explain why to you. As far as the shows that I was doing, even without education, for 5 years in the industry, I was able to become a culturally recognized city event. The show was called Think Afrique. I had people flying in from all over North America to come see the show. They're paying upwards of $100 to $150 for VIP ticket. So you can imagine how much you would make in one night in a hall that sat over 1,300 people. So, and I was, was I even 22? Yeah. I was 21 when all of this stuff was happening. So there's that, and I was happy because, like I said, because of the structure and the collaborative nature of that environment, you're able to just accomplish a whole lot more. And when I was done and I said, okay, let me now even go to the acting school, I was top 5 in my class. I graduated with honors, when the agency came to the school to come and look for who they wanted to be on their roster, because it's very important, you cannot get auditions in Canada. If you you can get auditions, but if you're talking about the cream, like for instance, you want to audition for things like The Expanse at the time, Killjoys, House of Cards, anything, you had to have an agency. And the agency who saw me while I was performing at my final year project in school was one of the oldest agencies in Toronto. They had been there like 25 plus years. His name is Larry Goldhar. And he saw me. And I remember when he had called me to his office to audition, I called one of the heads of the the Obsidian Theater group at the time, which was the Black theater group at the time. Philip Akins used to be the creative director. And I called him. I said, I've been invited by Larry Goldhar to come in his office and audition to be at his agency. And he said, wow, that's amazing. And I asked for tips. And the one thing that he said that struck me, he said, Larry usually wouldn't give, even if Larry likes you, like Larry wouldn't give you a contract that day. So if you don't get it that day, don't feel bad. Go home and perhaps just give it a couple days, 3 to 5 business days. And hopefully, Karen, who used to be his assistant at the time, will reach out to you. I said, okay, good. We had a conversation. I showed him the audition that I was going to do. Great. It was comedic, so I went to the audition. Between me and you, I'm telling you right now, Larry gave me that contract right there in his office. Right there. I was not the one that said, please give me time. I have to go back to go and look at the contract and think about it and show, I have to find management. See whether I hope I'm not signing, Yeah, but, they're a good agency. So then they weren't known to do that, right? So it was so awesome because everything was happening so quickly. By the time I got with them, I got my first gig immediately on Canada's biggest show at the time, which was Lost Girl. I got it so great. You understand? So all of these things, like, it made me feel great because then it was just sort of like validating what I knew to be true about myself, which is that, like, I'm a great actor and I will only get better. I'm a great director. I will only get better. I'm a great filmmaker. I will only get better. And I feel like this is the language a lot of us need to continue to use when we see people who are actually doing great work in this industry. Don't butt it. Reiterate it and say you have done well. Anybody that wants to accomplish anything in this industry needs to be talking to you. But I don't know. So for some reason, I don't know if that's always the case. I think it's changing now, though, in Nigeria, because like there was too much bickering when I first entered this industry. I was like, what is going on? So it's that. As far as talent, that one locked down. But I think at the time when I was about to get my credit and everything, there was now space. And now, in retrospect, when I remember why it took so long for me to get my credit to get into those unions and agencies, because there was a shift in Hollywood that was happening. To be Black at the time, you couldn't now look like me. Which I honestly appreciate. I don't know if you guys remember the rise and the rise of Lupita. I love her so much, But there was a time where, in Hollywood, things were shifting. And that's why now there will be outrage if you want to cast a Storm in an Avengers, right? Or which one? Or is it X-Men? Sorry. You want to cast a Storm in X-Men and use Halle Berry now and not a Lupita. Are you mad? Are you not reading the comics? Are you not seeing the skin? Do you understand? Like, so for me, I celebrated that switch in the industry because, come on, we cannot continue to portray Black people as light-skinned or darker-skinned white people. No, we're Black. But I think now the next shift would be for Hollywood to realize that Black is also still a spectrum. Because you're now trying to prove that you are hiring a Black person, the person doesn't have to look like you, Celebobo. Like, you're looking all like dark skin, chocolate. There's a spectrum. But I'm not eager for that to happen because it is our time. It is time for people who look like that to constantly be on screen. And I'm not just throwing around things. I went to an audition. I don't know if it was for the Killjoys. I can't remember what it was. Larry and them had sent me out to audition. We're auditioning. Like, there was this really nice. They wanted someone who sounded Nigeria, which I do. I can lean more into and sound very Nigeria. Like that one. No, I'm not even trying to do that African nonsense accent that Hollywood usually does. I can just channel, my mom or my dad or anybody and just give it to you. But then, this other girl who was there, she looked very dark-skinned and very beautiful. And even on the brief, it said they wanted someone African. So Larry them sent me to go and do the audition. It was a massive audition. So despite the fact that I had the accent, they called me back. I went there. A white lady, Karen, who was one of my cheerleaders at the time, she kept sending me out to these auditions. She knew, so they called me back again. So this was literally like between me and this girl. And ultimately, they had to go with her because aesthetically, she fits exactly what it was they were going for. And honestly, I'm not even paid. I'm not paying. But at the end of the day, what does that now mean for someone like me who looks like me that now, I mean, the roles I now used to get casted for were the ones that were very ambiguous. Like, it would just be like a woman. It didn't matter where she was from or what she looked like or whatever, But me, I was passionate about telling African stories. So while you're hiring these people, which I love, it's shutting me out. So the next question is, please, I beg, where is it hot now to be light-skinned and black? Let me just go there and just be working and just be, cheering on. So that means I'm not starving while I'm happy for, what's happening. And honestly, if we had to speak quite frankly, it is still very hot to be tall and light-skinned with an accent-ish. I say accent-ish because in Canada, they knew I was Nigerian. Is when I come here, then I'll be like, "Oh, you sound so American." I'm like, "I'm not American." Oh, you said, yeah. So it's those things where my accent is doing a weird thing where it doesn't particularly sound Canadian or Nigerian. Anyways, but you get the point. Like, my aesthetic plus everything. Of course, I'm going to get roles. At least as that's what I was hearing when I did get roles, because there's also the other side of that where, like, some people would say, "Oh, it's because you look like this and you sound like this that you're getting roles in this industry." But for me, I push back against that. Yes, you might be right at some level, but I'm also very talented. Recognize that too. I'm also very talented, and I need to be here because I need to be cast in like black stories. I want to be telling those stories authentically, and I have a lot of learning to do. I think it's quite shameful that I can't even speak my own language as an Ijo girl, as an Okrika girl. If you're listening, it's not secondhand. It's actually a place. Let me educate you. In Nigeria, it's down south creeks, PH. Keep driving until you reach the water. Just be going. So it's upsetting in that way. So that's why I said coming to Nigeria for me, I came as a student because it would be crazy for me to come and act like I know what I'm doing, even though I'm talented in a space that I literally have no idea of, because I haven't lived here as an adult, right? So coming back here has been a lot of learnings for me. So your initial question was those credits and how important it was, right? To, they're very important there. And I think some level of that, not that, but at least something, we need to create something that ensures that people who are talented, people who are gifted, and people who are trained are always first pick, whether it's production, as crew member, or whether it's in front of the camera on stage as an actor. Because these are the people who have literally like committed to this and should be at the forefront. Then, then we need a pipeline for the next generation. That's why I was talking to you about institutions. So while those people are working and they're coming out, we also need to now make space, because then what ends up happening is that you then have the same faces being repeated, which is kind of what's happening in Nollywood right now. Because like I said, in as much as we also want to keep the people who are committed and have the training and have the talent, we also want to figure out how to get the next, batch of people in there. And I think it's time. I don't know if you're on Twitter. Like, a lot of times people on Twitter are saying, they're using the same old faces,
You have to sell tickets.
Using the same old faces because, at some level, that works. And any actor, I don't care how talented you are, I don't care how much training you got. If you're going to tell me that you're also not going to adjust as far as the context of this industry, like you're not even going to try as far as social media, you're not ready now. Because at the end of the day, we're here to watch the show, but there's also business, right? So now you have to try to figure out how to balance out the two, because this fame thing is a hell of a drug, and it's not a bad thing. I think people need to understand what it is that they want. Like I said, what do you want, and how are you going to go get it? Because as anybody in this industry, you will find even directors and producers and everything. Everybody is still trying to do their own PR. So that bad as it bad. If you have an actor that's not even willing to push the film, you have the numbers. You understand? But now some people are forgetting that they're producers. They're forgetting that they're directors. They're forgetting that they're actors. Like they're now more celebrities than the actual work. And I think that that's what the danger is, right? If you just want to be like famous, that's fine. But if you want to be like a working actor, director, producer, writer, who's also famous, I think that that's a sweet spot. You actually know what you're doing and you have numbers. Those two things go together. If you're leaning in too much on either side, at this point in my life, I can say with my chest, you're wrong. If you're only depending on your talent, you're wrong. Have it all, but there's also this side. If you're only depending on those numbers, you're wrong. Because that's the reason why we're seeing shit performances and shit movies and shit everything. No, there's a sweet spot. You have to have both.
All right, so you started an acting troupe, and you did a play called Just Rich Men.
Yeah, Just Rich Men. I think that was probably the beginning of my comedic journey. Fun fact: comedy is not even top 3 of my favorite genres to watch. I like fantasy. I like period pieces. I like action thrillers.
Yeah,
like blow things up. I have a nice story as well. So I like that. It's not even top 5 safe, because I don't know. There's just something about comedy that's just weird when people are intending to make you laugh. So because I know the goal is to make me laugh, I'm usually not easily tickled. So it can be a chore watching. It's like I'm almost looking for, okay, where's the funny thing now? Even where's the funny thing? So it can be a chore for me in that sense. I didn't even think I would even touch comedy at all. But when I was in acting school or performing arts school, they made us do like improvisation. I don't know if you've ever heard of Second City. It's like an improv club. Some of them, I forget what big shows they're on. Like some of them will do Second City and go on to do things like Saturday Night Live, like SNL. So they had those, and I went to see some of those shows at Second City. Shout out to Mark Melamick, my acting teacher, who made sure we saw every kind of show. And we went there, I was like, what? Essentially, people would go on stage, like maybe 2 or 3 players or whatever, improvisers, and you would maybe even there would be games like maybe you throw 3 words on stage, like unicorn or horse or sky. And they literally, in the moment, had to do a scene that incorporated those 3 things.
Yeah.
And because it was so spontaneous, because even they didn't know what would happen next, I could tell you I've never seen anything funnier in my entire life.
Yeah.
I laughed my ass off so much because like them, I just knew. I even tested it out. I gave a word too. I'm like, maybe you guys are planning this thing in the back. Maybe you have people in the stage. I gave my word. They killed this thing, and I like my belly was full.
Yeah.
So after that, I was like, nah, I have to try this. So when I went back to school, there was I researched and I noticed that there was an improv club at my school at the time.
Yeah.
I joined it. I entered there. Now, obviously, it wasn't at the level they were doing at Second City because like these people were professionals, but it was good enough where I really just explored that comedic timing and, spontaneity. And sometimes the story will write itself if you just show up free and willing to learn and et cetera, et cetera. And when I finished from that, I think that was how Just Rich Men was born. because I had finished doing 5 years of this other show called Sync Africa. I was like, you know what? Now we need a comedic troupe. And yes, we will plan our stories for the sake of lighting and technicalities, because I mean, if we're going to charge money and we don't have like the backing for, we still need a certain level of like improv as well. So we had a loose storyline where things could either go here or there. But, you know, for the most part, how the story came about was from improv. Then we wrote it, and then we now performed it. So when you watched it, it was really funny because, you know, it still had the spice of improv, but then again, it was still kind of going somewhere. And, you know, we would break out of that to do really interesting things with the audience, et cetera, et cetera. So it was really cool to have to experience it. And the reason why I mentioned it is because Just Rich Men, I think, probably set me off, and I didn't know I would still do anything comedy related until I came back to Nigeria. And then I did even Waka the musical. That show I did in London had some comedic things in it, but I think the first comedic show that I really did was Back to School with Bobby. It's hilarious. Like, if you watch it, you know, you're laughing. It might not be everybody's cup of tea, but I can guarantee there's something inside there that's going to make you laugh. And again, just like Second City, just like Just Rich Men that you mentioned, which was, you know, me and a bunch of actors who were just interested in doing stuff at the time. I came and I saw Bobby. Bobby Back to School is very loosely scripted. It's very loosely scripted. So you kind of have to just feel it out, you know, and just go with, you know, whatever is happening in the room and respond intelligently. So that's why I think it's really hilarious. So talking about that, Toasted Girl, when it came about, I didn't even think I would be the one writing it. I was so scared. I told Bobby, I was like, you have to write it now. Me, I'm come and act it, but you have to, like, you know, give me, you know. So he helped me. We wrote the first episode together, you know, we edited it and all that stuff. But, you know, I wrote it, showed it to him. He's like, okay, yeah, this is it. So I started writing. And trust me, at the time when I started Just Rich Men, if you told me that I would be writing like actual comedic shows for myself and performing in the way that I'm doing on the Most Toasted Girl right now, I wouldn't have believed you. But here we are.
So with the roles that you take, how do you like approach it? I mean, with your role, Lola, on the men's club, like, I guess a lot of people, you know, kind of feel the on-screen chemistry with Badge. How do you generally kind of get ready for those kind of roles?
Great questions. Okay, you're hitting me with them today. Well done. How do I get into character? First of all, my process overall, regardless of TMC, I have to know the character as well as I know myself, right? If you ask me a question about Lola, I should be able to answer it the way I would be able to answer a question about Nengi. Where did you go to school? Where's her mom? Where's her dad? You know, how is she when she's happy? How is she when she's sad? What does she like to eat? Why does she even like this Louis of a boy? What's in her childhood informed? So it's so much. And because of acting school, I have a document that I use to just start answering names. So by the time I even do that, by the time I look at the script, by the time and some of these questions, answers would oftentimes be in the script. Not just in your part, and that's why I don't understand people. What's his name? The guy who played Deadpool.
Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds. I don't know if this is a fake tweet, but I'd seen a tweet about how for Green Lantern he only read his side, and I'm just like, I don't know which juju or which process he is using, because for me, how can I have to know what's going on now? And you can imagine with the process that I've told you, there are answers in the script. And sometimes it will be from what other people are saying about Lola, about me, the character. You know? Sometimes in scenes where, and I'll give you an example. There's a scene where Louis was telling somebody else how, you know, he doesn't want Lola Strawberry because she's getting testy these days. To me, that's a clue, or that's an answer, because I don't know if everyone watching or listening has been watching the Men's Club, but I didn't do season 2. So coming back into season 3, there was a little bit of a disconnect. So when I saw Lola on paper, She didn't seem like the same calm, sweet, let's just do this side sex and be best friends. Season 3, she seemed a little bit more feisty. When I was reading, I couldn't make a case for it, but when I was asking questions about who she is, just kind of like reintroducing myself to the character, when I see lines like that, when he's like, I don't want she has been testy these days, then that gives me a reason as to how testy, because then if he's saying that and she's not, he's lying.
Yeah.
He might say that, and the audience might take it because he said that. But is the reality that? Which is why it now brings me to another dilemma, because as an actor, you would have seen that too, and you're now going to go and act it like that. Then maybe by the time they edit, direct everything, they might now cut that scene where he said he's being tested, where she's being tested. So everybody, you just look like a crazy person. Where that's not now kind of like informing your choice, right? So it's always a fine line, but whatever the process is for people, I'd say fine-tune it, streamline it, just trust it. And by the time it comes out, it won't always come out the way you maybe imagined, because it's not like theater. I always say theater is actor's medium. Anyhow you want to direct, if I go there and I feel the audience, I will act it how I'm feeling. But unfortunately, film, you don't have control. And then by the time it comes out, by the time the audience is reacting, you guys are long done. You're finished shooting. You can't go back and do anything else. So there's that, knowing the character at the back of my hand. And then secondly, in every scene, I always ask, like, what happened before? Where is she coming from? Now, where is she going? So that informs even how I enter the scene as Lola. Did she have a fight with her mom? Because I don't know if everybody listening knows this, but like, we don't usually film, like, record movies and film them chronologically. Sometimes the final scene, you shoot the wedding before you even shoot the choral. So you have to look at the paper and know whether in this scene, did you just fight or are you guys good? So when it comes in, am I like, hey baby, or is there I'm not happy with you? And this is not something that needs to be said. This is something that, like I said, if you do the work, it will reveal itself to you on the page.
Yeah.
Now, not only that, when I've done those things, then I have to also go back to the person who wrote it, who is creating this world. What does she have to say about the character? So I'll have a conversation. Now, not every writer will humor you because people are busy. Yeah. But if you can reach out, you just never know. And thankfully, in my case, Dami Elebe, who writes the Men's Club, she was available, very available in season 1. But this season 3, I mean, although I didn't really reach out as I didn't put in that much effort because I still, I kind of knew where I was going. She has now blown, she's writing Netflix shows. But like I said, as much as you can, reach out to the writer. Then another thing is maybe, and a lot of productions in Nigeria, I don't know if they afford, at least with the ones that I've been involved with, I can't speak for everybody, but oftentimes it's never really the case that you have enough time to have these discussions with your director. You don't even rehearse, to be honest. Like, you don't, and I'm not saying this is even a Nigerian thing. Some productions abroad as well don't do that. Like, you're literally meeting the person for the first time. I remember the first scene I ever shot on the Men's Club, I was busy shagging someone in a room. I'd never met this guy before, but I had to climb him and I had to be sexy and make sexual noises, and it was just very strange. So you won't always get that, and even if you don't, it's not enough to fold your hands and say, what really helped, and I have to thank Tola for this, is before every season he does a read. Yes, we get the script, but we all need to come together and just read and just kind of like bounce off each other. And like, I remember in season 1 when I was playing with Bad, we had done the reading. I didn't even know it was him I was playing opposite. He was kind of, after me was someone in between us, then him. So I could say, so we didn't even know. So it was when we're introducing ourselves around the circle, then he said Lewis. I was like, so it's you I'm playing with, right? So when we're doing the read, I think what helped Baj and I was, we started taking it seriously from day 0. well, you can come in, yeah, you do the read with a little bit of characterization. At that read, I was already experimenting with things, and he was in the zone as well. So every time he would come to us, in fact, someone in that circle was like, oh, every time, we're reading your scenes, I see what's happening there. I kind of like what's happening there. So that chemistry kind of even just started off from like day one. I think there's also a bit of luck, because I mean, yeah, you could be doing that, but if that chemistry is not palpable, I don't even know how to explain with Badger and I, because even off scene or set, literally me and this nigga will be standing right next to each other. People are like, oh, I'm like, what is going on? I don't know what it is, because we're not trying. We're not trying, at least when we're not on set. But when we're on set, we tried. And I think from even just little things to like, for instance, when we would eat, when it would be lunchtime, we would just sit right next to each other. And just, even if we weren't saying anything, I think there's a certain amount of physical space and distance people have between each other when they're just meeting each other for the first time. You can see it. Over time, that gap literally begins to close. Then all of a sudden, they're a friend now, so your head is on their shoulder, your arm is around their neck, and you don't notice, but this happens over time. So there's nothing that irks me more than watching a scene, whether it's Nollywood or Hollywood. You're telling me that this couple I'm watching, they've been together for maybe 2 years, 10 years, and when it's time for them to kiss, they're so careful around each other's bodies, as though they're meeting each other for the first time, which is what's happening. They are meeting each other, but I don't need to know that. I don't need to know. And people think that for you to like create that chemistry on stage, maybe you have to go as far as maybe even like shagging each other off set. I've heard stories about that, or like kissing each other. I don't think all that's necessary. I think familiarity. Some people say familiarity breeds contempt, but before it gets to contempt, there's a nice sweet spot where you're just happy each other. And I think physical proximity has to do a lot with this. So I would just literally go and stand next to him. If we're doing anything, so to the point where, and I don't know what he did on his end, I can't speak for him, but I will always look for this man on set. Where is he? I have to go and sit down next to him. I have to eat next to him. Is he changing? Let me go and sometimes he will want to put his feet in shoes, so hold my shoulder, just be around me, so that way. And because I did that, I don't know if he noticed, but like we just kept getting very physically comfortable around each other, where like even when we're now rehearsing our lines, I'll ask him, I'll be like, is it okay to sit on your lap? Yes, it's okay, so let's sit down. So already by the time the scene comes around and we're supposed to be doing something intimate, even when we're not intimate, I think that chemistry is palpable, because you can just feel that there's just some familiarity, and because of that, it's real. Right. And I think that that's what people are speaking to when they talk about the chemistry. Now, the other thing is that you're acting opposite a fucking brilliant actor, and Badge is an amazing actor. Like, it didn't even have to be me playing Lola. He'll still bring it. It doesn't dilute his performance or anything. So if you put him with another fucking brilliant, amazing actor like myself, we will then obviously create like, some of that magic that I'm really glad and very, in many ways, really humbled by, because I mean, I can come here and be raging, shouting, I'm a good actor, Badge is a good actor, we've done the work, but you see, there's just a thing about the audience and humans. If they don't take to you, Baba, they don't take to you. You might have done the work, you might have gotten training, but there's also that. Now, do they like what's going on? If they don't, then it's up to you to say, okay, does this affect me? Or was this character created to be liked or hated? Am I doing my job right? Or to what extent should I take this reaction seriously, right? So I'll just recap. You asked how I get into the process. One, know the character, like you know yourself, because it's not you. That person is not you. It's a different person, a very, very different person. And then two, you have to then answer questions. What is the script saying about you? Right, while you're in the process of getting to know yourself, like there are always clues in the scenes that you're in, and in the scenes where other characters are saying things about you, or even in just the actions, then the notes in the script. 3, trust the writer, especially if they're fucking brilliant. Like, damn, what's this world? What am I doing? How am I doing it? Why is this character the way why is she angry? Why is she feisty here where like she wasn't before? right? Reach out to the writer, reach out to the creators of that universe, and trust that, you know, they know what they're doing, and go with that. And like I said, there are physical things physical things that you can do as far as sets, to just kind of like, as far as chemistry. I know not every role require that, but you know, anybody who's serious about acting will probably go and research other methods to get other things, right? But at least for romance and intimacy, there are also physical things that you can do to make sure that those gaps are closed. And then lastly, I don't know if this is within your power, Sha, but just make sure you're in a project where they've hired great actors as well, because if they're not brilliant at bringing it, you can be doing your best. He's a brilliant actor right now, DiCaprio, like, you know, performance, and you just have a stone opposite you because maybe their auntie is the producer or whatever. It just kind of waters down the scene. So, or even if they want to be actors, they're not serious. It's just like, hey, let me just. So, you know, all of those things matter. And then, you know, lastly, just trust the audience. If you're getting favorable feedback from the audience, then you just have to say, okay, you know what's going on? You know, why is this happening? You know, what's constructive? What's them just lashing out? Like, I didn't know that. There's always something to learn. Because at the end of the day, you can't tell people that you're performing for that this is real life. They're telling you it's not. They don't believe it, and you're saying, and you're saying get out. That's not true. You know, to some extent, that voice is also. But then again, like I said, they will always love you, and you also have to be okay with that.
Yeah. So you know, you're primarily an actor. For your producing and writing, what do you like to make? What kind of stories do you like to tell?
Ooh, what do I like to make? As far as my favorite genres to make, they're high up there. I like to make them because I guess the reason I like to make them is to do what I feel as though those genres aren't doing for me, to make it good enough for a me, wherever they are at in the world, to also watch and appreciate. So because there's a gap in those genres for me, I like making them, but I don't like watching them. But outside of that, I'm trying to solve a problem. If I just as a regular ass human being who just enjoyed making, regular ass producer who just enjoyed making stuff, I would definitely have to say, like, I would love to make fantasy, sci-fi at some point. I've already written like a short film, just to test, to see how that works, to blend fantasy and sci-fi in it. And it's just going to talk about, like, it's just, I don't know how to summarize this without giving too much away. Yeah. But I just want to explore the idea of what celebrity means, because I fought with the notion of what it means to be celebrity. So I want to use a fantasy sci-fi angle to kind of just look at it, address the human condition. And I also want to set it here in Nigeria. Okay. So it's going to be very, very interesting because it's not going to be engaging with the concept of celebrity from a Hollywood gaze. It's very much not Hollywood. But it's very much fantasy, and it's very much sci-fi, and it's very much, this is who we are, or is it not? You know, so I don't know. I'm looking forward to that. That's my favorite. Me too.
Can't wait to see how it turns out.
Yeah. Don't hold your breath. Me, I take my time because just that girl. Even those 3 episodes they saw, it was almost like nearing 2 years in the making. Like 3 5-minute episodes. Because to me, it has to be done right. And then the next batch, you know, it took over a year, obviously, because Corona and everything. But I'm never eager to do something that will not make sense. If something doesn't make sense, then just know that I tried, and the remaining thing is experience. I just need some experience, and there's a gap that I need to close. And hopefully by the time you see even the next thing, then even that's better, right? So.
Yeah. So I remember, like, with Most Toasted Girl, you did a crowdfunding campaign.
Yes, let me brag again. Oh God. Now, The Most Trusted Girl, as far as I know, is the first crowd-funded web series in Nigeria. I know because, like I said, when I want to do something and I'm not collaborating, I'm wrong. So I have to go and look for who has done it and learn from them. Celeb, I searched too. I searched that. But what I saw that some people had crowdfunded for films. I saw that some people had crowdfunded for short films. I saw, feature films, short films, even actual. I can't remember if I saw one for an actual TV series. But as far as like web series where, it's purely going to live on YouTube. No, I didn't see any. We searched and searched. I got people, there was nothing. I looked at all of Indiegogo. I think at some point I even reached out to the platform. So I can't remember. But as far as I know, we are the first crowdfunded web series, and I'm wearing that with pride. Because it is possible. You can community fund projects out of Lagos, Nigeria, raising money in dollars, and people will put their money where their mouth is. People will support what it is that they want to see. And I think that that's been the case with the Most Trusted Girl from inception and up until now.
Amazing stuff.
Thank you.
If you're stuck on an island and you only had one movie to keep watching, what movie would that be?
Oh my goodness, that is so hard. Does it have to be a movie? Can it be a series?
I mean, I'll permit that. You can choose a series.
Oh my God, this is a hard. It would probably have to be the Peaky fucking Blinders. Yeah, it has a little bit of everything that I like. There's the drama, it's period, I like period things as well. There's a little bit of thrill and horror in terms of like the killing. The acting is brilliant, the cinematography, there's horses in there, and there's also cars. There's, gangster shit that I like. Like, it's I just really like that world. So,
nice choice.
Yeah, Peaky Blinders.
Okay, so now back to Nigeria. You mentioned you're really interested in NSAS and Nigeria being better. What do you think we need to do? Yes. What's your top priority for us to do in this film industry for us to transcend our current standing?
We need to get our money up. I don't know how we need to do it, but we need to. But if I had to model after an industry, actually, it wouldn't be Hollywood.
Okay.
It would be Bollywood. Because I think that they have managed to understand what distribution looks like. And they capitalize on it in a way that even some of your biggest Hollywood stars can't even come close as far as money. How are they making more as actors, producers? Because they have embraced their genre. They have created systems that make sure that, as far as how money moves and changes hands and systems and how they watch, even accessibility. I can tell you right now, there's a cinema in the city I used to live in Mississauga, that only showed Bollywood films. Only. So if you are an Indian there and you want to watch, there's a physical location for you to go and watch that. And I'm sure this also transcends with, even online. In fact, leave online. How is Bollywood so popular in a country like Nigeria? It's not English they're speaking of.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's even dubbed. So these people get it in terms of like, audience, distributor, producer, like all of that relationship, that ecosystem. We all have something to learn from all of them. All of us. Hollywood included. So yes, if I had to fix it, it would be those channels, first. The money, where is it coming from? How are we funding our own projects? How are we making sure it's an ecosystem? How are we making sure everything else pays for it? It would mean figuring out our distribution, online, web, TV. It would mean, figuring out how the money works, because it needs to go back into the industry, sustain the industry, and sustain the people in the industry. It needs to be tight, just like the way they have it over there in Bollywood. And if the money is sure, now the question is, how can we determine which projects that are solid and deserve this backing? Because it's already there, right? I'm saying this because people like me now don't have to go and be doing Bambiala online to stay there. There's funding. Yeah, so that for me, that's what we need to fix. If we fix the money problem and how it's structured and everything, and that's why I think that it's now, and this is why we need to be wary, because I remember right now, if Netflix wanted to commission something, I doubt that they're paying as much as they're paying for Hollywood, or Bollywood projects. In terms, somebody went there and fucked up. They were probably paying more. Somebody went there and said, we can take less. We'll do it for you now. If you're an industry person listening to this and you've done that, I'm going to say this with my full chest. Stop doing that. You're killing us. Stop doing that. Even for actors who underprice and undervalue their craft, stop doing that. We need the actual cost of what it's going to take to make and sustain this industry on paper, not favors, because that's not sustainable. What is the actual cost? Let's agree on it and just pay people what it's worth. Because as far as what they're worth, nobody can ever pay. Right? So if you're doing that, stop. That's not helping.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that's pretty much.
All right. So how can people keep up with your work?
Ooh, please. First of all, if you love me and my work, both of us, we're already the Nengers. So, and the Nengers, THENENGERS is seamless. You can find me with that handle on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even on YouTube. Just type in the Nengers and my beautiful face will pop up and you can see everything that it is that I'm doing. I'm very, very vocal on Twitter. I also share bits of my life and what I'm up to on Instagram as well. And also you can check out my website. It's www.nengiadoki.com. That's also available if you want to see what I'm doing or get direct access to some of my recent work. What else? Yeah, just follow. And also you need to be coming back to Celeb Buzz podcast because I know you're here right now and listening to me. So, hey, you never know when next time I'm going to pop up here again. So follow this as well.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you'll pop up again.
Yeah. Hey. Hey, thank you so much. This is amazing. This is awesome. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it too. And if you're listening, thank you for listening. I appreciate you.
We have come to the end of this episode. Please remember to leave a rating and a review. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at @telegofilm and the podcast also on Instagram and Twitter at the Naija Filmmaker. See you on the next episode. Have a good one.